Welcome to another Wolff College of Coffee vlog. This week we're talking dialing in espresso. Now with this video it's more of a choose your own adventure style, so in the section below in our description you'll actually find links to different parts of the video. So if you need to dial in your espresso a little bit faster, a little bit slower, anything like that, jump to those sections. But otherwise we're going to start today with the setup. So if you want to stick with us now, let's talk setting up coffee. So, dialing an espresso for the first time of the day. There's a few things that you need to know, a few things that you need to do. When it comes to dialing an espresso and dialing in your coffee, it's almost vital to make sure that you know the grinder, you know the machine like the back of your hand. They are your best friend, and you know if you know them well and you know how to use them, you respect them the way they should be respected, then it's all going to work out beautifully. When it comes to dialing in, we like to have a number of things on hand. First and foremost, we like to make sure that we've got a couple of tray scales. We use Acaia scales. We also like to make sure that we've got a bench scale on hand. Now you can either use a Brewista bench scale, you can use a coffee gear bench scale, or alternatively just have another Acaia scale just with the right parts that you can use to weigh your handles. When it comes to using beans for the first time, first part of the morning, and putting them into your hopper, where possible, use aged beans. Now we're talking rested beans, nothing more than 30 days, but at least 5 to 7. They will be far less temperamental and a lot easier to control. You're not going to get as much variation. Now, as we put the beans into the hopper for the first time, we're going to start wanting to warm up the blades of the grinder. We're going to want to start getting grounds through the chute. So the first few coffees that we're going to knock out today will essentially do nothing. We're not going to measure those at all. We're not going to be determining what our ins and outs are by those first few. Today what we're going to be doing is a grind 3, brew 3, and then on the 7th shot, that's when we start looking at our parameters for the volume in and volume out. What we use and what we will be using today is 20 grams of coffee in and 40 grams of coffee out. So we're talking a measured 20-gram dose and a measured 40-gram yield when it comes to the espressos. Now the grind 3, brew 3 that we're going to be using is also a means of dosing all of the heads, getting rid of any chemical from the night before when you've cleaned down your machine, which I know you're all doing. It's also a means of warming up those heads, getting the water running, getting everything ready to go so that when we get to that 7th shot, it's all humming beautifully. The importance here is getting dialed well, because when your coffee is dialed and your espressos are wild, everybody's happy. Yeah? Cool, let's do it. Alright, so we've ground 3, we've brewed 3, now it's time for the 7th shot. And this one is the one where we're going to be measuring our dose, we're going to be measuring our yield, and we're going to be aiming for a 27 to 30 second shot for our recipe. Now, with those shots before, you've already seen that they were starting to build up towards that time. The first shot was only 25 seconds, so obviously, very first shot of the day, grinder burrs hadn't been warmed up yet, the chute still hadn't had coffee in it, so this is why we essentially dump out the first few coffees just to get things running, start putting us to where we want to be. So let's get onto this 7th shot and see how we go. Remembering that if you're weighing your group handles, they all weigh differently, so just make sure that you're using the same one if you're going to weigh a few times using the handles. So, my dose was correct, my yield was correct, but the timing's a little bit off. Now, in order to get into the window that we want of 27 to 30 seconds, we're gonna have to make some adjustments on our grinder. Now, if your shot was running a little too fast and was running below the 27-second mark, then you're gonna wanna make it a little bit finer and slow it down. If your shot was running too long and going past 30 seconds, then we're gonna wanna speed it up. With those, click in the section below and we'll see you in a second to see what we can do for your shots. My shot's taking too long. What do? If you clicked on this section, it's because you've gotten your dose right of 20 grams, you've gotten your yield right of 40 grams, but your shot that you were aiming for 27 to 30 seconds is taking 31 seconds or more. So what we need to do is we need to make some adjustments to get you back down into the ideal place. What we're gonna do is we're gonna make the shot a little bit coarser in order to make it the right shot time. So let's do that now. Now when we do this, we want to make our adjustment. The key to remember when making adjustments is essentially you're working on a very small cog that's affecting a very big cog. In doing that, small changes will make big differences. When we make adjustments on something like a Mazza here, one notch makes a world of difference. So we're going to do it one notch at a time. What I do is I make my adjustment towards coarser by one notch. We then dose out, similar to our setup, 3 grinds, and we're going to dump those out. Those will not be where we want them to be. Now on the 4th, we measure. So there's our shot. Now, if we've made an adjustment and it hasn't quite taken the effect that we want, we can adjust again. But knowing that that one adjustment has made that much difference on our shot, we'll need to adjust accordingly in the same direction. Now, if we've gone too far, we can always go the other way. That being said, we again will need to knock out a few grinds in order to make sure that we're back where we want to be. If you've happened to hit it exactly on where you want it, you've got the same dose, the same yield, and now the timing's correct, now we get to taste. And we've got a whole video on tasting and dialing in to taste, so look forward to that. My shot's running too fast. What do? If you've clicked on this section, it's because while you were aiming for 27 to 30 second shots, unfortunately you were getting shots running at 26 or less. So what we need to do, we need to make an adjustment to get it within that sweet spot. What we'll be doing is we'll be turning our grinder to finer in order to make sure that it slows down that shot and gets us into the sweet spot. Remember that when you do this, that you're turning a small cog, it's attached to a big cog, so small changes make big effects. So all we'll do is we'll make one notch adjustment towards finer. We'll grind out at least 3 separate grinds, dump those out, those won't be any good, and on the 4th, we'll test. So there's our shot. Now, if we've made an adjustment and it hasn't quite taken the effect that we want, we can adjust again. But knowing that that one adjustment has made that much difference on our shot, we'll need to adjust accordingly in the same direction. Now, if we've gone too far, we can always go the other way. That being said, we again will need to knock out a few grinds in order to make sure that we're back where we want to be. If you've happened to hit it exactly on where you want it, you've got the same dose, the same yield, and now the timing's correct, now we get to taste. And we've got a whole video on tasting and dialing in to taste, so look forward to that. my dose is wrong. If you've clicked on this section, it's because now that you've made your adjustments and you're getting the right yield in the right time, for some reason, now your dose is not quite correct. As we make our changes to our grinder, if we've made large adjustments to either coarser or finer doses, what can happen is the grinder needs more or less time to give you the right dose. Now, especially on an electronic grinder, we set how long it grinds for. And what we'll do now is we'll make some adjustments to get within the range we want of giving us the 20-gram dose that we want in the first place. The way we do this, now we hold down the menu button on a Mazzer like this, it'll start flashing at us. Now we choose which dose we're going to change. We'll change the one on the double cup on the right here. As I've been making adjustments, I've noticed that my dose has been starting at 20 grams, it's now down to 19.5, so I need a little bit more time for it to give me that extra 0.5 of a gram. So I'll make an adjustment by 0.5 of a second, hold down the menu button again, and that'll then save that into the system. The way we test this, is we weigh our handle, and we'll see how we went. So it seems to be giving us too much now. So what we need to do is reduce that time. Again, we hold down the menu button, select the dose we want to change, and bring it down. Hold down the menu button again, that'll save that setting, and we test again. Now that it's in the sweet spot, we test through and we make sure we're good on every other parameter. Beautiful. Now our dose is correct, our yield is correct, and our time is correct. Now we get on to tasting the coffee. And if you want to dial into taste, we've got a whole nother video for that. So, here we are. If you've gotten to this section, it's because you've gotten your dose right, you've gotten your yield right, and you've gotten your time right, or you've just clicked to the end of the video. Now, the important thing to remember is why we do this. You're asking, Adam, that was a lot of effort, but I'll tell you now that dialing in, using parameters like these, using dose, yield, and time, sticking to those numbers creates a consistency in flavor that your customers will appreciate. Dialing into taste, while fun, is a lot more difficult to do, and we have another video coming up soon in which we do exactly that, dialing into taste, and we'll see you on that one. Thanks for watching. Now remember, you can always comment below if you have any questions about anything, any of the things we covered. If you'd like to like, subscribe, or get the bell on so that you see when that dialing into taste video comes up, you'll be the first one to see it. Thanks again for joining us at the Wolff College of Coffee vlog, and we'll see you again next time.